In this video, we're going to talk about catch lights. The good, the bad, the ugly, and why you should care. Hey gang, if you're going to shoot portraits, don't overlook the importance of catch lights. They're a small detail that can easily make or break your shot. Be sure to stay tuned until the end, and I'll give you some cool tips about lighting the eyes in your portraits. So what's the big deal about catch lights? Catch lights play an important role in creating dimension and depth, and in adding life to a portrait by drawing attention to the eyes. But to really understand why catch lights are important, we need to talk about a little science first. We know that by the time we are between 5 to 7 months old, we learn to expect that light comes from above. That's why when you walk into a room, the lights are on the ceiling and not the floor. Also, as infants, seeing these light sources for the first time, we are seeing small, round point light sources. Psychologists have long known that as humans, we use our eyes to communicate our feelings and interest. Research has shown that the white part of the eye, the sclera, is also implicated in judgments of attractiveness and health. That is why portrait photographers usually retouch and lighten the whites of the eyes. Research has also showed that darker limbal rings make a face seem healthier. What's a limbal ring? It's the dark outer ring around the colored iris. Most people have them, but not everyone. And if you have darker eyes, they are probably harder to spot. This is why many photographers use dodge and burn techniques or create actions to lighten and sharpen or even replace the iris of the eye. Psychologists consider pupil dilation to be a cue to sexual or social interest. That's because your pupil size isn't under your voluntary control. Bigger pupils equals more interest. So do you see why this science stuff is so important? It has been said that eyes are the windows to the soul, and the science confirms that eyes are extremely important in our photos. I have previously made 2 different videos with tips and suggestions for dealing with eyes when photographing portraits. And I've made this video about using the eyes to determine the best side of your subject's face to photograph. You can find links to all 3 of these videos in the description below. We know that a catch light is a reflection of the light source or sources in your photo. You should know that a catch light will appear the same shape as the light or modifier that was used. So a direct flash will generally create a pinpoint of light, while a rectangular softbox will create a rectangle. Similarly, a round softbox will create a round catch light. Now how can you tell if a round catch light is from a softbox or a beauty dish? Look closely at the center of the catch light. If you see a light gray dot, it was a beauty dish. The gray dot is the reduction of the light in the center of the modifier from the deflector plate. If you use a ring light, you'll get a donut type catch light like this one. Strip lights make catch lights like these, and the list goes on. You know, physics also causes the catch light to appear larger in the eye the closer you put your light source or modifier to your subject. And conversely, the further it is from the subject, the smaller the catch light will appear to be. Now, when a portrait is lit with available light, the sky, a window, or other available light sources can often be seen reflected in the eye. Already, I know that some of you have strong opinions about which type of catch lights you like and which type you hate. And a lot of you are already asking, well, which kind is best? Let me begin by saying there really are no rules. If you've tried entering contests run by camera clubs or some of the larger photography organizations, you've probably heard that there can only be one catch light in each eye and that they have to be round and they must appear at 10 or 2 o'clock. If you want to win the contest, you better follow those rules. But I assure you, beyond the contests, there are no rules, just science. What do I mean by that? Throughout my career, I have created shots that I am very proud of with all different kinds of catch lights. Square, round, vertical, horizontal, star-shaped, you name it. And let me assure you, I have never had a subject look at their photo and ask about the catch lights. In fact, the only people who talk to me about catch lights, well, they look a lot like you. I do, however, have certain habits, guidelines if you will, that I usually follow for catch lights in my images. For most of my work, I want catch lights that look natural and not distracting. I follow the science and try to create catch lights that our brains are wired to expect. So my general approach to catch lights is to keep them round and to keep them in the upper half of the eye, which means light coming from above. If our brain sees catch lights and lighting that we expect, it is likely to be less distracting. Occasionally, I will use something completely different, and that's okay if it fits the creative concept of my shot. Now, if I'm shooting with available light indoors or natural light outdoors, I have no problem with the natural catch lights that are created. Mainly because these catch lights are exactly what we would see naturally with our eyes. So it's what our brains expect to see. How do we know where or how high to place the modifier? I will usually set my modifier so that the bottom edge of the modifier sits at the same height as the space between my subject's nose and chin. This way, the majority of the light is coming from above the eyes and will create natural shading on the face. You can certainly go higher, but do understand that if you go too high, you will lose the catch light altogether. How can you determine how things will look before you put your subject in front of the camera? Get a black marble. You can find them in hobby and craft shops and of course on Amazon.com. I have a link in the description below. Place the marble in your hand like this and you can see the catch light reflected if you're using constant lighting, or you can take a quick test shot with your strobes and see the results. The marble trick works equally as well outdoors in natural light or indoors in available light. Is it okay to have more than one catch light in each eye? I generally try to keep it to one catch light in each eye when I'm in the studio. So that means only using a key or main light. No fill lights on my subject, no 2-to-1 lighting ratios, none of that old school stuff. If I want a fill light, I will use a reflector which is big and will create a soft, subtle reflection, not a defined catch light in the eyes. Since we are photographers, we have all seen those portraits with multiple catch lights in the eyes. And since we are photographers, we have all seen photos where those multiple catch lights can be distracting. If you have to shoot with multiple lights and modifiers in front of your subject, one solution is to back up and not shoot as close. By reducing the size of the eyes in the photo, you can also reduce the distraction of multiple catch lights in the eyes. Can I just remove the catch lights in Photoshop? Well, you can, but that is extra time and work, and you need to pay attention to the shadows in the shot. All of this science that I've been sharing is based on what our eyes and brains expect to see. If there is an obvious shadow and no catch light, that can actually cause confusion. Just like anything else in photography, it's best to get it right in camera. Does pupil size matter? This is one category where I will generally ignore the science. Remember, the science tells us that larger pupils indicate arousal and interest. But the physics show us that a smaller pupil allows more of the color of the iris to be visible. So I tend to keep my shooting space fairly bright so that pupils remain smaller and there is more eye color visible. This is especially effective with people who have lighter color eyes. Certainly with subjects who have darker colored eyes, pupil size is not going to be much of an issue anyway. If I'm shooting a portrait, I will not artificially add color to my subject's eyes. If I am doing one of my fashion or beauty portraits and my subject has dark eyes, I will almost always add color and lighten the iris of the eyes in post-production. Who knew that those little dots in the eyes could have such an impact on a photo shoot? Bottom line is that success in photography, much like life, depends on the details. Catch lights bring life to your portrait subjects. Done right, they add sparkle and interest to the eyes. Done wrong, they simply become a distraction. I hope that you found this information helpful. Until next time, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe so that you don't miss any videos. And don't keep all this cool stuff to yourself. Please share it with your photography friends. Remember, photography is not a competition. It is a passion to be shared. Now go pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.